Supati Pano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Iti piso Bhagava Arahat Samma Sambuddho Vijacharana Sampano Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purissa Dhamma Sarati Sata Deva Manuksanang Buddho Bhagava Tamahang Bhagavantang Abhipujayami. Tamahang Bhagavantang Sirasa Namami. Suvakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehipassiko Opanayiko Pachatang Veditabo Vinyuhi. Tamahang Dhammang Abhipujayami. Tamahang Dhammang Sirasa Namami. Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho. Ujjapatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho. Yaya Patipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho. Samichi Patipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho. Yadidang Chattari Purisa Yugani Ata Purisa Pugala. Esa Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho. Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Dakineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anuttarang Punyam are proud and demanding in nature, let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be happy. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be happy. Let none deceive another, or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain its recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to false views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Messing around again. And for those who haven't heard before, that sometimes people say, why do you always spend your time laughing and joking and messing around? It's because of the type of Buddhism which I follow. And it's, you know, this don't know what's coming. Because traditionally there's supposed to be 3 types of Buddhism, Hinayana, Mahayana and Vajrayana. And, you know, you always try and sort of combine everything, you know, to try and take down the walls which separate people. And so it made a combination of Hinayana, Mahayana and Vajrayana. Taking the H from Hinayana, the Aha, the second, third and fourth letters from Mahayana, and the Yana from Vajrayana. And what does that spell? Hahayana. Which is my vehicle. It should make you happy. Anyway, here we go. Dear Ajahn Brahm, can you please elaborate on developing, cultivating and strengthening and maintaining faith in one's practice and in the Triple Gem? Also the same will be applied to the other 4 spiritual faculties. That's, you know, faith is, that's one of them. It's sattha, and also the energy, mindfulness, stillness, samadhi, and wisdom. Those are the 5 spiritual faculties. But the developing, cultivating, strengthening and maintaining the faith, the saddha. I think it was Francis Story who said the difference between he called it like confidence and faith, is that in the Buddhism, it's confidence is faith supported by reason and evidence, whereas what most people think is faith is sometimes belief in spite of evidence. And in fact, because when I went to Cambridge, the Cambridge Union last November, that the debate was about this house has lost faith in faith. And what I was meaning was that the idea of what faith is like faith which isn't supported through personal experience or through evidence. In other words, it's just a shot in the dark. And so of course that sort of faith is really, really dangerous, because you can believe in anything. And sometimes sometimes you get into very big trouble. So, and it just very intelligent people can sometimes be taken in by charismatic leaders. So faith is dangerous. However, to develop, cultivating, strengthening and maintaining the saddha in one's practice and in, say, the triple gem in Buddhism, in the practice it's always questioning it, testing it. Is it going in the right direction? So just as I was mentioning that being lost in the mist, up on top of the mountains is very dangerous. Yeah, if you had a sort of a GPS, or if you had even a compass, sometimes the compasses are wrong, and sometimes your GPS is wrong. I remember just even years ago being in London, and the car was trying to take me back, and it said turn left, and the bridge was being repaired. If we'd have turned left, we'd have gone into the Thames River. So sometimes that's the best they could know from the GPS. So sometimes that's like the faith. Yes, you can have a good idea. This seems to be working, but keep your eyes and ears open, always be able to challenge it. So that means that you always really know whether it's going in the right direction or not. And as in your own practice, are you getting more peaceful, more happy? Is it actually, getting somewhere? Obviously, you have to give it time. You don't just thinking that I haven't got jhana yet, so this is hopeless. It does take time to get these big experiences, but at least you're getting more peaceful. It should be starting to work. And also these other things, saddha is not just saddha, the energy. If it really is, that's the thing with faith. If you really think, yeah, this is what we're supposed to be doing, you have confidence. It gives you a lot of energy. And sometimes that people have confidence in a movement, like a political movement, or a social movement, to have like what we had here in Australia recently, gay marriage. That gives you a lot of energy to fight for that. And but then we have this wonderful thing called mindfulness. Why does the faith, the energy, and the mind come before the mindfulness? Because you do need to have some sort of view to actually direct the mindfulness and also the energy, which does come from just having enough confidence in what the Buddha said, just to be quiet and be calm and don't think so much. And then you get really strong mindfulness. And of course, from strong mindfulness, you get stillness, the samadhi, the jhanas, and the wisdom which comes from that. So how you actually elaborate, develop, cultivate, and strengthening these things, this is straight from the sutras, the word of the Buddha, Eightfold Path. That's always the answer. How do you do these things? Eightfold Path. How do you cultivate wisdom, insight? Eightfold Path. How do you cultivate stillness? Eightfold Path. How do you cultivate liberation? Eightfold Path. It's all Eightfold Path. So it's great. Not a sevenfold path. If there was a sevenfold path, some factor wasn't necessary, the Buddha in his great compassion would have taken it out for you. Not even a onefold path. Because still, I have to say these things, still people say that all you need is mindfulness. Because they, again, very bad translation, they translate the first words of the Satipatthana, ekayana magga. And this is a basic mistake in the translation. They call it ekayana. Ekayana means the one way, but it doesn't say this, ekayana. And it means a path going in one direction. And the Buddha said, I think it's 274 of the Dhammapada verse, that, I always get that wrong with one of the other ones, but it says, this is the only path, there is no other for the purity of insight. And that's really sort of almost word for word translation. It's very clear. This is the only way to the purity of insight, and that is Eightfold Path. It's always Eightfold Path. So that's actually how you develop these things. So what you do, you develop an Eightfold Path, you get a bit of confidence, it seems to work, it makes a lot of sense. So you have some confidence, but it has to be supported by your reason and also your personal experience. And you test it out, see if it works. And if it does, take it further, and go further, and go further. And we always go further, we test it out. And if it doesn't work, then either you've misunderstood the path or it's going in the wrong direction, so try another way. And that means that you get a lot of confidence and faith. And it means you get energy, and also you get sort of this beautiful mindfulness, like awakeness, a lot of stillness, and a lot of wisdom comes up. Interestingly, again, those two things, samadhi and panya, that's the fourth and fifth of the spiritual faculties. The one comes before the other. Samadhi pachaya yata bhuta yanadasanang. Samadhi, the stillness, the deep stillness, the jhanas, causes yata bhuta, as things are, yanadasanang, as they really are. The knowledge and insight in things as they really are, caused by stillness. It's the wisdom born of stillness. That's what the Buddha always said. Not of thinking, but of stillness. You get a really still, peaceful mind. That is where the wisdom arises, not through thinking. So there we go. That's a nice little question. The next question, is it true that if one becomes a monk or nun, Dharma protects the family? Oh, you get a lot. What do you mean by protecting? You get a lot of advantages if you've got a family member who's a monk or a nun. It's pretty easy to get on these retreats. You get precedence. And they can come and stay, and of course you get sort of privileges, if you're a monk or a nun and the family, because we've got responsibilities to our family, to our close family. So I know my family, they would never come anywhere close to Buddhism if I hadn't been a monk. But they're interested. What's he doing all this time? And they know that just how I've changed and how you become more peaceful, and that really impresses your family. And it's the same with other people's family. They come here, to actually have a visit every now and again, so they can come and see what's going on. And a good example of that, I don't think, should I mention his name, Venerable Nito? No, I won't mention his name. So, an anonymous monk. No, when he first ordained as a monk, his parents didn't approve at all, but he still became a monk. And so that when he was going to go to visit his family, they wrote him a letter back and he showed it to me. He said, yeah, you can come and visit us in Norway, but wear a suit. If you can't afford one, we'll have one ready for you at the airport. And that's the only, and he showed it to me, and I said, right back, from your preceptor, if you don't want your son to appear in front of your friends with a robe, he can be naked. That's your choice. A robe or nothing. I said, stand your ground. So he did, and they reluctantly, so I met him at the airport, he was in his robe. But what happened later on, that his father died. And so, when we found out, we made sure he got to Norway as soon as possible. And he stayed there for, maybe 2 or 3 months, looking after the family, and just, going through that transition where, your father passes away, the head of the family. And I got this beautiful letter from his brother, his elder brother, which I really should have kept. And it was addressed to me, and he said, I never really understood my brother becoming a monk. but now seeing the change in him and his strength and how much he's helped the whole family through this really difficult time, I'm writing you to say thank you and to know that my brother's monkhood has the whole family's full support. In other words, when they saw the effect it had, and then they were just so impressed, they said, "No, we're really so happy that he is an ordained monk." Because at first, you become a monk or anything, I think, what the heck are you doing that for? You're just slacking off, just you're afraid of relationships. What is it, the reason why? But then when they see the result of it, well, the family gets so impressed. So it does protect the family. In a sense, it gives you an extra asset in the family to really help out in very, very difficult times. And even just other times as well. So I just recently visiting family, just some family over in England, and how it protects you. There was my nephew. You know, I got a nephew and a niece, and of course, you know what a nephew and a niece calls their father's brother, who's a monk? Munkle. That's the name. So I'm their munkle. And so my nephew, his name is David, Dave was coming to visit me over in Australia, and he went to Vietnam first of all, just to visit that place. He loved Vietnam. And then from Vietnam he's coming to Australia, and he's passing through Singapore airport, just passing through. And as he was passing through, when he went through the security check, in his backpack there was a bullet cartridge, a blank, but it was in the bottom of his backpack. Not live, it's just a shell. And that showed up on the x-rays, so he's pulled aside and put in the interrogation room. What's that doing in there? Because even though it's not a live bullet, it's illegal. And he said, well, honestly, I don't know how that got in there. I've just been backpacking. It's not live, it's not so dangerous. He said, but it's still illegal. And so they asked him, and Singapore is really strict. And they asked him, he said, well, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Australia to see my uncle, who's a monk. He didn't use the uncle joke. My uncle, who's a Buddhist monk. And the interrogator said, oh, does your uncle know Ajahn Brahm? Which he said, my uncle is Ajahn. Oh, really? I go to his talks. Oh, you can go. And I got him off the hook. So yeah, sometimes the monks or the nuns, they do protect the family. I got him off a charge there. Anyway, there is Ajahn. And also, look, there's so many engineers and doctors and stuff, there's not enough monks and nuns around. We really do need more. So you can go to wherever you want to come to, from San Francisco. There's quite a few nuns over there, but still not enough. And to Hawaii, Hawaii over there, and to India, and where else you want to go? There's heaps of them. There's not enough monks around, or nuns around. So that's why it's wonderful to become a monk. It protects not just the family, but the whole world. Anyway, dear Ajahn, can consciousness occur without a body? If so, is that a ghost? Where and how does this consciousness reside? Okay, consciousness occur without a body. That can happen, but that is what we call the immaterial realms. And that's just, what happens after the fourth jhanas. That's really weird. But what happens in the other realms, a consciousness makes a body. It's called a mind-made body. And, your mind is incredibly powerful. Look, sometimes, tell this basic story. This is seen many, many times. Just the power of the mind over the body. It's not just, you're making it happy and positive, and that's really good, and you can see the effect on your heartbeat. No, it's not just that. It's even more powerful, because I recall, as a student, one of the clubs which I joined was the Psychic Research Society. It wasn't just investigating ghosts, so we did a lot of ghost investigating, and also just hypnosis and all weird stuff, which I was always fascinated with. But the hypnosis, there was, I think it was a video I saw, they had a fellow who was hypnotized, and the hypnotist had a 4-inch nail on the end of a piece of wood. And it was room temperature. But under hypnosis, he said, this 4-inch iron nail is red hot. It's been heated to a very high temperature. And the hypnotist touched this nail on this person's skin. And of course, because he believed it was red hot, he screamed in pain. That I could understand. What I was really shocked with was a burn, a blister came up on his skin. A real blister. How did that happen? How can you destroy skin just because of belief, because of mind? But it happened. He created a wound just because of that belief. The mind can affect the body that much. That is why if the mind can actually harm the body, it can also heal it as well. But anyway, where it gets to the ghosts, yeah, they have what's called a mind-made body. So I love these anecdotes. These are, pretty sort of well documented. Actually, well, not documented, but people I trust, I interrogate. And there was this one fellow, because he came to see me. He lived in Kalgoorlie, which is, about 400 kilometers to the east of here. 800, okay. 600 kilometers to the east of here. It was like a gold mining town. He was a builder, really Australian. So, he came, even come to see the monk in thongs, shorts, and a dirty singlet. Very Australian, maybe about 50. But his friend was a Singaporean man who I got to know. Victor, his name was. And Victor brought him to see me because his friend was dying of cancer. And he just, he actually flew him all the way from Kalgoorlie to Perth. I forget what his name was. Say his name was Robert or something. And so Robert was dying. So I just, give him a bit of counselling, a bit of good advice. And he really appreciated that. And just, maybe a week or two later, Robert died. And so Victor flew over to Kalgoorlie to attend the funeral. And a few days later, after the funeral, here in Perth, Victor woke up in the middle of the night because his wife had elbowed him. That's what he thought. And so he turned around and told his wife, I'll need my sleep. Stop elbowing me when you're... And he realized his wife was fast asleep. It wasn't his wife. It was Robert, his friend who died. Very clear. And so, stupid Victor, he turned around to his wife, wake up, the ghost is here. And of course, when he turned around again, the ghost was gone. And again, even more silly, they all both got up and they searched the whole house for the ghost. You don't do things like that. Ghosts, they come and see you, but you can't go and find them. So, but anyway, he came and told me the story. A very clear vision of the fellow who died. But what was really strange, he told me, was his dress, his attire. Because he was wearing a suit and a bow tie with like polka dots on it. And, and a nice shirt and shoes, not sandals. And he said that was one of the most weirdest things. It was him, because, you could see his face. And I said, no, this is really fascinating. This is really a good story, because I told him okay, the next day or two, give a call to, Robert's wife, the widow. Just how are you doing? Is everything okay? Anything I can do for you? And just, don't ask the leading question. Just, put it in there as just without any warning as possible. And just asked the wife, I said, because it was like a closed casket. I said, what was Robert wearing inside the box? And that's because I knew what the answer's going to be. his wife said, "Oh, he was wearing a suit and a bow tie." And he said, "Why'd you put that on? I've never seen him dressed up at all for anything." He said, "Yes, I bought that suit and the bow tie for him a long time ago, and he would never ever wear it. He refused to wear it. And I thought, at least in his coffin he can wear it." And that's what they did. And so Victor never knew that. He couldn't know that. It was totally out of character. But what was dressed in the coffin is actually how he appeared. So be careful, how you dress in the coffin, because if you don't dress properly, that's how you appear to people. It's weird, but it's true. So you make a mind-made body. This is exactly what the Buddha said, just almost like an image of like what you are now. And that mind-made body is what the ghost is. And sometimes people do that. I should say this because someone's already mentioned this, that sometimes when you're meditating, it's very rare, not everybody gets this, only, I don't know, maybe 1% or something, that you feel like you leave your body, the old astral travel business, floating out of your body. And it's real, you actually can see things outside. But you don't have to worry about that, don't be afraid. After a while it's just really boring, and unless what the other story, which is really fascinating, how you can make use of this. But, it's just, you'll come back again. You don't have to worry. You're not dead. But there was this one guy, because I used to go and teach meditation up in the prison up the road, Karnak prison. And he said he didn't mind being in prison at all. Because, he could astral travel whenever he wanted to. And how it started, an interesting story. He was in Yugoslavia, before they had the Balkan Wars, when it was a single country. A really young kid, maybe 4, 5 or 6, somewhere around that age. And he was so really sick that he was having an operation. And, under anesthetic. And like many people experience, they left their body, he died, basically. And floating above the table, this is what he told me. He said even though he was such a small boy, not even, I don't know if he started school or maybe just 1 or 2 years at school, he knew what was wrong with him. And he knew the doctors, the surgeons were looking in the wrong part of his body. And that's, he's going to die. So he just willed, the senior surgeon, just willed, I don't know how you do this, not speaking it because he couldn't speak, but just willed him, don't look over there, look over this part. And as soon as that thought, that will happened, the head surgeon just looked over, there's a problem there. And that's how they healed him. And then he came back into his body. He said from that time, he could leave his body any time he wanted to. So when he was up at the prison farm, he said, look, I don't mind being in prison. If ever I want to go and see a football match, I just leave. If I want to go and see a movie or see a concert, I can just go right at the front. And they can't see me. And I can see everything. And they don't know I've gone. So he said, I don't mind being in prison. I just want to go to the beach, see a sunset over in Fremantle. They can't catch me. He just floats out of his body, just goes out for a little while, and then comes back later on. They don't know he's gone. And that was actually true. That's what actually happens. So the consciousness creates what we call a mind-made body for itself. And the consciousness is a stream of consciousness, a cause and effect. Maybe later on you get into that, but it is a interesting thing about ghosts and stuff. But don't worry about ghosts. I know many people are scared stiff of ghosts. Ghosts cannot harm you. All they can do is make you scared. And that is because, again, I was a member of the Psychic Research Society in Cambridge, and one of my best friends, I'm sure I mentioned him many times, Professor Bernard Carr. He came over to Perth, it was great to catch up with him for a conference we held here a couple of years ago. And he was the first Buddhist I met, it's another story, but he was also interested in the same things. He was a theoretical physicist, he was also a Buddhist into psychic research. So, we were close friends. And when we left university. I went to stay with the great Ajahn, and he went to be a disciple of the great Stephen Hawkins. And a really close disciple, because apparently in that movie, The Theory of Everything or something, there's a biopic of Stephen Hawking's life that Bernard Carr, a person acted him. He was one of the characters in the film. That's how close he was. And Stephen went to Bernard and Marie's wedding. So they were they knew each other really, really well. So he was a professor of theoretical physics in Queen Mary College. And at the same time, on the side, not really announcing it to too many people, he was also the treasurer of the Psychic Research Society in London. So, he was just a top physicist, but also into ghosts. And of course, many times you see ghosts, and the thing is that they did the research. They just got all the cameras and stuff, and the one thing which they found, and this is in England, famous for its ghosts, that not one occurrence in over 120, 30 years of research had a ghost hurt a human being. Make you scared, but can't hit you, can't harm you at all. All they can do is make you scared. So, human beings are far more powerful than ghosts. For anyone who is a little bit afraid of ghosts, please know that they've never harmed anybody. And the best simile is that human beings and ghosts are like elephants and mice. Elephants apparently are very afraid of mice. Just like human beings, some human beings are afraid of ghosts. Which is more powerful? Can a mouse kill an elephant? Can an elephant kill a mouse? Just step on it, it's squashed. Elephant is far stronger. So you are like an elephant to a mouse, like a human being to a ghost. So all you really need to do, if ever you have a ghost thing, just tell it to get out of here. Don't be afraid, be assertive. And the ghost knows, they can't scare you. They leave. They can't come in this place when I'm around. But if they do ever, you come in to tell them that if you mess around, I'm going to tell Ajahn Brahm. No, please, no. Anyway, the next question. This is regarding the sixth precept. That's not eating in the afternoon. Well, I feel it made sense for monastics living in the time of Lord Buddha in India, where the sun sets around 5 p.m. and people want to sleep soon after that. Well, they're pretty much these days, and even those days, they're awake at night. I don't see its relevance for everyone in the 21st century. When our days last until 10 p.m. or later, sometimes I find myself waking up by hunger in the middle of the night and feel sleep deprived the next day. Also, I'm not sure our systems like having a big intake of food at 11 a.m. than nothing the rest of the day. It feels slightly unbalanced. Please advise. Well, if you look at some history, that human beings used to just have, 2 meals a day, maybe 100 years ago. And they had that snack for lunch, and the main meal was in the evening. That's the only food they would take, and they lasted okay on that. And you go back earlier, 1 meal a day for most people, they didn't have any lunch. It was just a meal in the evening. Middle Ages, 3 or 4, 5, 6 meals a day is a very, very modern thing. If you go back earlier than that, it's just a meal every few days. Whenever you could catch a woolly mammoth or whatever it was. So the human body is actually, built to be able to store food and enjoy, and also endure not having food every now and again. That's why many people like going on fasts, and people feel good about it afterwards. So the reason why monastics do this is because it makes it so much easier. You don't have to worry about eating and cooking in the afternoon or evening. It's like free time. Like, I've done that for 43 years. I know it's fine. Other people do that, and the Buddha did that. So there's no real big problem about not eating. You get quite used to it. And even, that people who just come here for a 9-day retreat. Oh, look, there's many people in this world haven't eaten all day today. In conflict zones, in poverty. So unless there's a physical reason for it, like sometimes if a person is taking antibiotics or something else, then that's fair enough to have something simple in the evening. But for most people, it's actually fine not eating in the evening. And the hunger is only a fantasy, quite honestly. And you notice here that if you don't see the food, you don't smell it, as long as people don't cook in the evening, you don't feel hungry. Like even me, sometimes we get some ice cream for lunch. I don't fancy any ice cream for lunch, but later in the afternoon, you're going into town and see an ice cream truck. Oh, I want some of that ice cream. And it's not, that you need ice cream. It's just because you can't have it that it's attractive. So you think of food, because you can't have any. If you had at home, you could have it. Oh, I don't really feel hungry. You wouldn't have it at all. So remember the psychology of it. It's not real hunger. Anyway, that's... and in India, in the time of the Buddha, the nice thing about the suttas is there's another part, the Vinaya. And in the Vinaya, these are actually the rules about, for monks and nuns. Now, in the suttas, it's very inspiring, just the Dhamma. But when you have a rule for a monk or a nun, it's always they tell the story of where that came from. It's because a monk or a nun misbehaved, or did something wrong, or it was just, it was less like the monks in one place. They were doing a lot of building, and they were always asking the lay people for stuff. If it wasn't for funds to buy some building material, it was for, some wood, or some stones, or some cement, or something. It was asking for stuff. And so because the monks were always asking for this and for that, the lay people got really scared of monks. They saw a monk coming and they thought, I better hide, otherwise they're going to ask me something again. And it got so bad that when they saw brown cows coming in the distance, even then they went in their houses and shut the windows because they thought they were monks coming to ask for something. And because of that, the Buddha laid down these rules for monks. You can't do such things. So what happened there was you find that it's a wonderful snapshot of life in the time of the Buddha in India 26 centuries ago. And, there's no reason for exaggeration because it was saying the wrong things the monks and the nuns did. So, usually exaggeration is just, elaborating and enhancing your goodness. But this is actually detailing all the faults of monks and nuns. And just all the silliness they got up to, playing jokes on one another. And so because of that, you have, what happened in the time of the Buddha. And because most of the monks got the food on alms round, they didn't want to go on alms round in the evening because it was really dark. And there was apparently that there was one at night time, one of the monks was hungry, so he went out to get something to eat with his alms bowl. And then there was a woman was getting water from the well, and they saw, and there's a flash of lightning, and the woman screamed, "Ah, it's a monster after me!" And then the monk said, "It's not a monster, I'm a monk." "Ah, you shouldn't be out this time of night, you scared me." So, the Buddha said, "No, don't need to be out at night time, just in the morning time, that's all. And don't harass the lay people for your food." So that's why we just ate in the morning time. Simple, and it's all finished. Afternoons, evenings are nice and free. So anyway, how do you suggest we respond to people who criticize Buddhism and say it's a selfish religion, mainly concerned with one's welfare through meditation, while other religions engage in many community outreach activities? Oh my goodness, have a look at me. I wish I was more selfish. Such people also accuse the monks and nuns get enough to eat. We should be concerned about the homeless and poor who have no one to care for them. And of course, why are people poor and homeless? And sometimes that, yes, you can, as they say, I don't like that saying, if you give a person a fish And you feed them for one day. You teach a person to fish, and they break their precepts for the rest of their life. So, give a person a carrot, you feed them for one day. Teach them how to grow a veggie garden, and you feed them for life. So this is what an important thing about the monastics. That there is a role to be played. Otherwise, we would not survive. And of course, there's just so much amazing thing. It's not just getting enough to eat. We share it with everybody. And my goodness, just the amount of work and service that the monks keep on doing for everybody here. So people actually should come and actually see a Buddhist monastery, see how it works. A selfish religion? Absolutely no way. So it's amazing just the amount of work and care which we have done. But it's also on a very, very deeper level, inspiring people and teaching people how to be mindful, how to be compassionate, and how to forgive one another, how not to get angry. So yeah, you can feed a person, send some food to a woman's refuge, but why do they need to get there in the first place? Why is there violence, domestic violence in families? Can we not sort of teach people just to be more forgiving? And also, as I mentioned the other day, really, powerful little underlying story why there is that violence, because the strings are so tightly stretched. People are so stressed out in their lives, and they don't know how to relax. If they would relax more, so their strings were loose, then of course something happens, in the house, and you don't get upset. You've got resilience, because you're not always so taut and tense. So it's amazing the amount of stuff which Buddhist monks and nuns actually do in this world. But we don't promote it. So because we don't promote it, that's sometimes why people think we don't do anything. But have actually a look, and you find this huge amount of stuff. You mentioned earlier that we're able to meditate at Bodhinyana Monastery. Are there any restrictions on the time that we can do this? Are you able to sneak past your cave? Yeah, one of the monks talked to this evening, he said, oh yeah, I saw so many people from China Grove in Bodhinyana Hall this afternoon sleeping. Be careful, I've got spies everywhere. So if you're going to go over there, just, at least meditate. Don't just lay down and fall fast asleep. If you want to do that, you call your bedrooms. So please use it properly. Any times that you can do this, it's again that there are times in the early morning, actually not really in the early morning, but in the afternoons and evenings, sometimes with little ceremonies over there. So just be sensitive, and don't make a noise, don't snore, don't do things like pointing the feet at the Buddha, because sometimes that offends some cultures. Dress appropriately, be quiet, and just see if you can just use it appropriately. Just really sit up straight. Sneak past your cave. I got a cave over there, but I'm the only person I think whose bedroom is a tourist attraction. So maybe towards the end of the retreat, if you want to have a go and squid. I don't know why you want to see it. It's just a cave, that's all. Anyway, Bhante, is the mind in the body or the body in the mind? Okay, this was actually one of the common friends of Bernard. This was Jeff. And he was the president of the Psychic Research Society for a few years, also a diplomat, consul of Macau for a few years. But anyway, he went over, he raised a family, I became a monk, but always kept in touch, and he sent me this beautiful little, really interesting letter about one of his kids, first year in school, and the teacher asked the question, what is the biggest thing in the world? Question. Now, you know what kids are like in sort of first grade at school, so enthusiastic. Miss, my daddy is the biggest thing in the world. No, it's quite cute and sweet. A little 5-year-old kid, your father is huge to you. And then another kid, no, miss, an elephant, much bigger than her daddy. Just been to the zoo. Miss. A mountain is much bigger. That's getting a bit better. A mountain is the biggest thing in the world. And the daughter of one of my close friends put her hand up and said, Miss, my eye is the biggest thing in the world. And everyone stopped. And just, what do you mean? Even the teacher didn't understand. He said, well, my eye can see her daddy, an elephant, and a mountain, and so much more. If all of that can fit into my eye, my eye must be the biggest thing in the world. That's really cool from a 5-year-old. She later on was doing post-grad work, post-PhD work at Oxford in biochemistry. So, it's a really smart little kid even at that age. And so they wrote back, and it's great, these little different ways of looking at things, which make incredible good answers. And I said, yeah, 9 out of 10, but not 10 out of 10. Because your mind can see everything your eye can see. And it also can imagine things you'll never see in this real world. And your mind can hear sounds, real and imaginary, smells, tastes, physical touch, real or imaginary. And it also has its own area of experience. In fact, everything that you can ever experience, everything you can ever know, can fit into your mind. Therefore, your mind is the biggest thing. And you notice I never continued the sentence in the world. You can know the world, you can know the universe. It can fit into your mind. Your mind isn't the biggest thing in the world. The world can be known. It's in the mind. That's an incredibly powerful argument. Simple, but irrefutable. The mind is the biggest thing in the world. And don't ever assume that the mind is some epiphenomena of the brain. That is just such such gomayang. And the evidence is out there, so obvious, many areas. Of another example, what we were talking about the other day, of, what's it called? Is it terminal clarity or something? It's apparently there's a word for it because many of the monks sort of read this up in New Scientists and other stuff. It is when a person is about to die and they're in a coma, they've got a tumour in their brain. They can't do anything except the basic bodily functions of just keeping the heart going and the lungs beating. They've got sort of no higher brain functions. It's all destroyed, it's gone, it's finished. And then they open their eyes and speak. Terminal lucidity, that was the word. And there's no physical reason they should be able to do that. They're brain dead. It's destroyed, there's no brain left. And they recognize and talk to you. And that first time I came across that was in a story by Tolstoy, who was noticing this. He says, very well known, and I gave a speech about 6 months ago in I think, Renchi Hospital in Singapore, and I just asked, because it's for nurses with terminal care, just nurses and doctors, no patients, other people. And how many of you, nurses, doctors in terminal care, sort of have experienced that? And about a third of them put their hand up. Sort of patients who are dying, demented, in coma, the last minutes of their life, they become clear. Inexplicably so. And that just shows, it's evidence amongst evidence, many other types, that, the mind and the brain are not the same thing. The mind will continue on, cause and effect. It's independent of the brain. So, what that means is your brain is dead, it's not an epiphenomena. The body, the brain, lives in the mind, not the other way around. Change your perceptions, it's amazing. How to become a monk? Easy. I did it. If I can do it, you can. You've got to be a guy first of all, otherwise you become a nun. How can I be sure it is the path for me? One of the nice things about being a monk or a nun, you don't have to be a monk or a nun forever. There's no such thing as life vows. So if you get really inspired, you want to be a monk and you're ordained, and then think, oh my goodness, what have I done? So there's always exit strategies. In other words, if at a time you feel, I don't really feel like being a monk anymore, it's just, it was inspiring, but I'm not really up to it, then you leave. So, you don't have to sort of be held back by a decision you made from inspiration or whatever early on in your life. So, to me, that was so wonderful, because when I became a monk, I thought I was 23, got, good qualifications. I had lots of strengths, fit, healthy, lots of girlfriends. So I thought I'd just finish with one. I said, it's an excellent time. And it was. And I tell a lot of people, one of the scariest things in my life, scariest moments, when I think of it, it's almost like traumatic. But, I've got over shaking about it now. But it was at a marriage of one of my friends. I was about 21 or something at the time, just, your mates. And, you're all standing around there, and just, after one of your mates got married, and then we started, guys being stupid, saying, who's going to be next? And one person, I'd say that was Jeff, I was talking about the other day. Oh, he'll be next. Said, nah, no one will marry him. And then my mates pointed at me. My lay name was Peter. I said, oh, Peter, he'll be next. Said, nah, no one will marry him either. And then there was a girl standing next to me, and she whispered in my ear, I would. Don't laugh, that terrified me. I was so scared. And I just made sure I just kept away from her for the next year. The poor girl, but anyway. So, it wasn't a sort of, a hopeless case. But then I heard, that, especially in Thailand, you can become a monk for however long you want. So I told everybody, I said, I'm maybe a year or 2 years, become a monk. It's like almost like doing your spiritual finishing school. Because getting, really, I was really interested in meditation, spirituality, really get into it for 1 year or 2 years. And then, once you're enlightened, then I can go back to the world, get married, start a job. That was my plan. But then, of course, as soon as I became a monk, you realize, wow, this is, something, and for many people, it's very powerful. And this is no joke. As soon as I became a monk, just even a novice monk, first of all, and I used to wake up with nightmares for the first 4 or 5 nights. Wake up in the middle of the night sweating, really scared, anxious. And my nightmare was I was a layperson. Honestly, I'm not exaggerating. I'd open my eyes and see my brown robes, on the floor next to my mat. I'm a monk. I made it. Oh, great. And I'd fall asleep and just have a beautiful deep sleep. And that occurred for about 3 or 4 or 5 nights in a row, which was, you can't fake that. That was just something very deep inside of me wanting to become a monk. So, of course, I never looked back from that time. So anyway, this is just how you become a monk, or a nun. It's a great lifestyle. And you can see just how easy it is. It's not ascetic. All that idea of asceticism, well, that's, the Christian monks who flog themselves and wear belts and just, I don't know what they do. But anyway, that is just, really nothing to do with Buddhism. Even those monks in Japan who just hit each other over the back with a Zen stick, I can't make sense out of that. Where's the compassion in that? Not compassion? So anyway, it's a beautiful lifestyle. And you get so much job satisfaction from this. As some of you or some of the other letters I get saying, oh, thank you so much, I'd be dead if you weren't here. I just have committed suicide. I read your talks, or I just listened to something on the radio, And this old ex-caretaker, not of this place, of our city centre years ago, he decided to, just have a bit of peace and quiet. He moved over to Beverley, just in the wheat belt. Just got a nice little caravan and a shed, and by himself. But didn't realise that solitude. Sometimes you get depressed, and so he went through a dark time. He got really depressed, and he got as far as going into his shed, tying a noose on another noose already, and the chair already, and then he went into his caravan to write his suicide note. And he had the radio on. And who came on the radio? And now we have an interview with Ajahn Brahm from Bodhinyana Monastery. And he thought, oh no. This monk gets involved in all of my plans. He's on the radio. I can't even commit suicide with him trying to stop me. So he screwed up the piece of paper, untied the rope, and he came and told me, laughing all over his face. But he saved his life. There's some people like that. It's wonderful that you can do things like that, and just job satisfaction is really amazing. The only thing which is difficult being a monk or a nun is the retirement. The retirement benefits are out of this world. So anyway, it's a really nice job to be doing. Anyway, is vibration and energy the same? Not really. Vibration is physical. The energy is like mental. And it's built out of stillness and joy. I'm talking about the energy of the mind. And you're not vibrating, you're perfectly still, nothing's moving. You get huge energy. Why are there good and bad vibrations of energy in different places? You're talking about the energy in the rooms, in houses or even rooms, temples, etc. Just because basically what's happened there before. Sometimes, I mentioned that sometimes you can actually pick up on stuff. Not all the time. Some people are really sensitive, some people aren't. There was, telling names as well, Barbara and Ainsley. And she was from the west coast of England, and he was an Anglo-Indian. Really wonderful people. But he became a Buddhist first, and so they went on pilgrimage with me to India. And on those pilgrimages, I gave them a orientation session before we left, and I said, be careful, because some of these places have got really strong energy, very powerful. And Barbara, at the time, she confessed to me, she thought, this is nonsense, this is Gomayang. She'd been in England, there's so many old castles and ruins. She'd been in so many of those old monuments and stuff. He said, just old ruins, that's all. And she said, what's the difference in India? So she thought it was being stupid, but landed in Gaya, checked into the hotel, and then went into the Mahabodhi temple, where the Buddha became enlightened. And as soon as she walked into that compound, she wept uncontrollably. And so she came to say sorry afterwards to me. She said, look, I didn't understand. I thought this was crazy stuff, but, it came out of nowhere. I just burst out crying because, she actually tied into the energy there. So, sometimes this is not what you expect. Sometimes it just happens. Anyway, how can we feel or detect them, including human beings when we meet or in contact, also when we walk in the woods with just nature alone? You can be sensitive and just, it's usually that if you trust your body and trust your mind, they will look after you. And again, the more sensitive you are, the less you think, and the more you listen, obviously then you become much more sensitive. If we all have Buddha nature, why is the grosser mind states of greed and delusion, aversion, so much easier to feel and experience? Just because you're used to that, that's all. Why is not Buddha nature the natural, easily experienced state? It is easily experienced. Just sit down and let go. Don't do anything. What's easier than letting go? If you've got to do something, sit for an hour, sort of, stretch, learn all the chanting, in Sanskrit, not just a small chant, the whole lot, and just study all the different interpretations of dependent origination. That's really tough. If you look at all the books in the Tripitaka, there's almost like 100 Bibles there. And to learn all of that, wow, that's going to take forever. Yeah, that's tough. But to sit here and do nothing, it sounds easy, doesn't it? But it's the hardest thing to do nothing. Nothing doing. We're really crazy people. You're not going to be judged here. I am not going to give you certificates at the end of this retreat with an F on it. I'm not going to judge you, but you judging yourself. What have you done so far? Stop that. How many more days to go? What are you going to try and achieve in the next few days? Stop that. That's just so worldly. Just be. Relax. Let go. Can't be easier than that, but you think, well, I'm not doing anything. Precisely. But I'm not getting anywhere. Exactly. Where are you trying to get to anyway? I worked so hard studying theoretical physics. Now I've forgotten most of it. And I'm going to forget more of that as you get older. I would train playing soccer. And now just, if I ran for 5 minutes, I'd probably fall over. All that training, where's it all gone? So you start off in life with a bald head, finish off with a bald head. Start off wearing nappies, finish off wearing nappies. Start with no teeth, finish with no teeth, only false ones. So we all go back to where we started from. So all this stuff, the greed, hatred, delusion, aversion, it's easy to feel because you've just been brainwashed into doing that. But I'm brainwashing you the other direction. Dear Ajahn, feeling like my body being pulled diagonally and vertically. Okay, it's nice stretching. Seeing a golden thing that gently moved like a big wave and feeling nice. Not extremely blissful. Oh yeah, but it's getting there. Are these pre-nimitta stages? Sound like it. This afternoon during meditation, my head had so much energy and it was pulled this way, that, and it was not a comfortable feeling. Okay, after coming out of it, I don't feel much like sitting down in case it comes back again. What we can do, we can actually, if we get pulled this way and pulled that way, we can actually, someone has come in a motorbike, so we can actually get a motorcycle helmet for you. So it can't really be pulled this way and that way because, it's confined into the motorbike helmet. So that way you'll be perfectly safe and you don't have to worry about, being pulled this way and that way. No problems at all. In other words, you can let it happen. The only reason you feel comfortable is because you've got afraid. Oh, what's going on? This is weird. If you just let it be, fine, you can pull my head off if you want to. It just causes so much problem. Better without it. So whatever, just as long as you don't get afraid, there'll be no tension. And there's a tension there which the old anger-eating demon, I don't want this, get out of here. And you'll be fine afterwards. Is it possible to practice stillness of mind without observing the breath? Of course it is. But you can do anything you want, but you'll find just after a while the breath just comes up by itself. But you don't choose it. It's just nature. Hi. That's a very deep question. That's what it says. If hell's angels types can get into jhana, why become a monastic? Because I kept falling off bicycles and bikes and so just not really worthwhile. And hell's angels, they get in trouble with the police. So it's much easier being a monastic. He might have looked rough, but maybe he was a kind, soft teddy bear inside. Yeah, of course he was, just like each one of you. Everyone's got, just the Buddha nature. Has everyone got Buddha nature, you reckon? Are there some exceptions? Donald Trump, has he got Buddha nature? Of course, he's just, You know, like that Hell's Angel, just he's a teddy bear inside, just with a soft centre. Some people live in that in the United States, so they don't agree with me. I imagine that after the driver drove straight into the roundabout, the nun probably wished that she had taken the driverless bus instead. Ha ha ha. Okay, driverless bus is one of my similes. I'll come across that later on. Anyway, my question is as follows. How to distinguish between a nimitta versus a very lucid dream? Which one interacts and then wakes up from feeling refreshed and fully energized? Because dreaming is usually when you go to bed, when you're sleeping. If it is happening when you are sitting and your head is down and you're fantasizing, it is not that lucid when you're actually sitting on a chair. But it can be lucid when you're in bed. But if you get a nimitta when you are basically sleeping, you wake up straight away. It's far too powerful to actually to sleep. A couple of times that's happened to me. When you're really having some really good meditations and you've got lots of nimittas come up, and then in the middle of the night, a beautiful nimitta comes up. That's it. No more sleep that night, mate. So that's the nimitta when it comes up. It's powerful, way more powerful than lucid dreams. In the Metta Sutta, it says, "Being free from all sense desires is not born again into this world." Well then, where would one go? To heaven with my fellow Catholics? I was kind of looking forward to getting reborn in a better model of body. Just kidding. No, it's just all these ideas of heaven realms. Yeah, that heaven is an interesting place. I mean, what have you seen the pictures of heavens and people with harps? It's okay if you like that type of music, but when I was young, I liked rock music. Where did Elvis go? That's where I want to go. And having ambrosia, day in for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Can't you have something else? So, but anyway, it's when there's most sense desires, it means no real interest in seeing, hearing, smelling, and touching. That's what we call the pseudowasa. That's where the anagamis, the non-returners, hang out. They just basically go into jhana and sometimes come out of the jhanas and then they go back in again. So if you want to understand what that type of heaven is, develop your meditation. And you get really so much bliss, pure love, as some people explain. It's so still. And you can experience those realms, right now. Not by going to visit them like a tour bus, but actually you feel it. And this is going to happen for a long, long time. Are there such things as karmic creditors? Deceased beings you or your ancestors have done wrong to in the past, or past lives haunting you for revenge, causing sickness and bad luck. One Buddhization group teaches chanting thousands of mantras and releasing thousands of fish or creatures as piecemeal offerings to pay back these karmic creditors so they can stop sickness and bad luck. That is really bad karma, releasing fish, because you're releasing most of them in the wrong place and the fish die. Or there was that temple. They would have, I think it was in Penang somewhere or Chiang Mai somewhere, but they actually, there's an ABC documentary they showed me. And so they had the birds in little cages in the front of the temple, and you could buy one of them and set it free. For making good karma, especially on days like Wesak, any holy day. So they just did the investigation, like the investigative reporters from Australia. And so they buy the birds, and the birds will fly away just way over the housetops, and they come around and go back into the back of the temple again. It was their job. And they were quite happy there. And they got well fed and well cared for, protected, and all they had to do is stay in a cage and look sort of cute, and then someone would buy them and they'd release them, fly off, and then come back again. A really good business, that. And you may laugh here, but they do that with funeral services here in Perth. So funeral directors sometimes, if your auntie or your grandma or grandfather dies, say, do you want the beautiful white doves? So they have them in the funeral parlour, and they sort of, you at the cremation or at the funeral, then you let the doves out of the cage, so they fly up into the air, free. And that's just like letting go of the spirit of your old grandma. So you're flying off into the sky with the bird. It's a very good symbol. But you can. I'm sure you've seen that bird, Bianca, but Lynn knows it very well. But they did this once, a funeral at our centre in Nolamara, and the birds flew away, but one decided, no, I don't want to go, I want to retire. And so it came and stayed in Dhammaloka Temple. And it was there just in Lynn's house for a long time. So, sometimes, I don't want to go anywhere, this is a nice place to be. So I stayed with Lynn's house. But that's, it's a bit of a scam. But yes, you have done lots of bad karma in the past, but also lots of good karma in the past as well. They're two separate accounts. So why is it that sometimes we get lots of bad karma, sometimes lots of good karma coming up? And it is because, if you're in a bad mood, a bit of negativity, a little bit of bad luck which happens in your life, we get so negative that because that state of mind, we actually attract more bad karma. It's like we actually bring it back on us. We subconsciously type in the PIN number, get some more bad karma coming out. But have you ever noticed if you have really a lot of good karma, then just lots of good karma comes to you? Because you're resonating with your past goodness. So that's one of the reasons why that we learn how to forgive and let go of all our past memories, which are bad. We don't have revenge or guilt in Buddhism. So, if you've done something wrong, you learn from it. It's important you make mistakes because that's how we learn. We don't keep beating ourselves and getting negative, because if we do, we're going to actually resonate with bad karma. We get more stuff happening to us. But if you forgive and let go, oh, poor thing. Somebody just makes a lot of noise in your cottage. It's wonderful that actually, even on this retreat, I feel so wonderful for them. You're resonating with good karma. With that positive attitude, the more good karma would come. So that's actually how it works. What we tune into. If we're negative people, we tune into more negativity, and more bad karma comes. When you said last night that probably all of us here can get jhanas, make it enlightened, I feel like climbing up on my chair and saying, sadhu, 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 so loud. But my pride held me back. That's why you won't get enlightened. Too much pride. Let go of it. Probably I still have a long way to go to be non-self, but I thank you for your incredible kindness and compassion. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yeah, exactly. Look, one thing. Should have said this already. Sometimes when you're on retreats or hearing some Dhamma, it always happens that people cry. And they sometimes weep. Please don't stop it. Let it happen. Because in so many places, you feel embarrassed to cry. And I say this because about 3 or 4 years ago, there was an Australian gentleman here and he came to the interviews and said, look, what's going on? I'm crying. And my answer was, when was the last time you cried? And he paused for a while and he said, man, that's about 8 or 9 years of age. And my father told me, Australian men don't cry. And I told him, he got so much crying to catch up on. And he caught up on a lot of it during the retreat. Sitting here, just weeping, tissues next to him most of the time. And he wasn't embarrassed. In fact, people just gave him so much loving kindness. And I think he got lots and lots of offers from the girls in this retreat. Honestly. The psychology, just a really sensitive man. Are you okay? Do you want to come for some dinner? So that's maybe a trick if you're looking for a partner in life, guys. But sometimes it happens. Please let it happen. because it's just sometimes beautiful emotion. Sometimes it's just inspiration comes up. Just let it come, and sometimes it's just bottled up emotions from the past, and just you let it come and feel so free. So please, just allow it to come, those sorts of emotions. Dear Ajahn, what is meditation of awareness of awareness? What that is just saying, was I aware? So it's just awareness of awareness, but you can get really complicated. Next you can go to the next level of awareness of awareness of awareness. Were you aware that you're aware? So sometimes, it's called meta-awareness sometimes, but I prefer just to have simple stuff. Just be aware. And actually, you can't be aware that you are aware. You are aware that you were aware. You get in the past coming in there. So, there's too many wheres. It wears me out being aware of where was I aware. I were aware of wary awareness. A request for the Ajahn. Be talk machine. Talks with the following words always get me high. Forgiveness, silence, stillness, stopping, vanishing. Did it work? Oh dear. Okay, please forgive me. And next time, shut up, be silent, be still, stop asking these questions, and get lost, vanish. Did that make you high? That's what you said. I'm only following your instructions. Following words always get me high. Forgiveness, silence, stillness, stopping, vanishing. Only if it's too much trouble. If it doesn't work out, no worries. Excellent. Actually, I'm making good time today. Dear Ajahn, recently you had a discussion organised with Russell Brand who did not show. Yeah, that was the debate about lost faith in faith. Because, you see, even in Australia, many countries in the world, that the organised religion, that people are just moving away from it. The number of Christians in Europe is under 50% now. And so in many places, and even Australia, the fastest growing religion is no religion in Australia. So what's happening here? So this is actually, we're asking what's happening. And of course, you all know what's happening, that many organized religions have been promising so much and been trying to be moral authorities. And have been abusing children, encouraging, at least not speaking out against sexual abuse, stopping sort of same-sex marriages and stuff. They haven't had a very good record. And because of that, people are saying, well, you're supposed to be, the moral authorities, but, you haven't produced the goods, and quite the opposite. So people have asked, do we need religion? So even these days, sometimes with even Buddhism, we say, well, let's call it spirituality, because religion has got a bad name, basically. But you know where the word religion comes from? It means people who keep monastic vows. Not priests, not imams or rabbis, but from us mob. Religion is actually from monks and nuns. But anyway, so that was lost faith in faith. In other words, the things where you're asked to believe, that sometimes people just don't believe it anymore, because the authorities they trusted haven't actually lived up to what the minimum expectations of them. But we've lost faith in so much now, with even politicians. I remember as a young kid that, name's on there was a Minister of Home Affairs in the British government, and I think number 3 in the government, and he was implicated if a friend he'd associated with was convicted of corruption, and immediately he resigned, just because of just associating. Once the investigation had been completed, it was Reginald Maudlin, I think. I'm not quite sure, I forget the name. But anyway, once the investigation was completed, 1 year later, he was totally exonerated. He was innocent. But he said, yes, I knew I was innocent, but even if you're a minister in the government, You have to have no suspicion on you at all. Even like the taint of suspicion was enough for me to resign. And that was just, the integrity which was there at the time. Even if you were innocent, but if you were suspected, then you'd lost the trust. So resign, get another job. And I was just so impressed with that. These days, people are actually guilty, and they still don't resign. So it was, you could really look up to people like that in those days. So anyway, times have changed. Anyway, what would you have discussed? Russell mostly talks about the 12 steps of recovery. How do you understand the 12 steps from Buddhist perspective? Oh, we have a much shorter, the eight steps. Eightfold path, as usual, of recovery. But with the addictions, the main thing is the idea of compassion, forgiveness, non-self, because most addictions are escaping simply because you don't think you're good enough, you're not really worth saving, you're a hopeless case, and just people escape into alcohol or drugs addictions, pornography, gambling. There's a whole heap of addictions, negative addictions that is, simply because they don't feel good enough. And one of the first things to do is actually to build them up. That you're welcome, you're okay. There was, please excuse, I'm going to use a rude word here, but it's in the context, that I gave invited to give a presentation at a mental health seminar in Perth, 3-day seminar in the convention centre. And the session where I was presenting was for the clients of the mental health system, the people who had been through anxiety disorders, depression, and post-traumatic stress, and all sorts of stuff like that. And this one lady, after I gave her my presentation, she came to apologize to me. And she said, when you came in here, my thought, I told the person sitting next to me, now what's this wanker doing in here? That's the rude word. It's an English word. It's not very nice. If you want to know what it means, just go and ask somebody else from that country. And she said, I thought, this brown-headed monk, what does he know? But she said, you made me cry and laugh and inspired me. So I'm sorry for that even thought. And because what really inspired her, which was a simile, I've told a couple of you on the interviews, it was a simile of the trees in the forest. It's a very powerful simile for people with addictions, and everybody actually, because if you go for a walk in a forest and go looking for a perfect tree, one which is dead straight, not leaning to the left or the right, not twisted or bent, with all the branches equally spaced, with all the leaves green, no brown or yellow leaves, or no leaves which have been eaten by bugs. A perfect tree, you will never find that. And in fact, it's nowhere near the most beautiful tree. All the trees in the forest are all bent and crooked. They've got many branches torn off by the storms. And in the holes left by those torn off branches, that's where the birds make their nests, or the possums. Some of you have seen the beautiful black cockatoos here, and all the other amazing animals and birds which live in this forest, mostly in those damaged trees. And you see that it's twisted and bent, and the bark, the trunk of the tree is sometimes burnt and crooked and got these bulges in it from past injuries. There's no such thing as a perfect tree in a forest. And in fact, if you actually have a look, the most beautiful trees, the ones you would go back to again and again and take photographs of, they're the ones which are the most bent and twisted and damaged. So the lesson in this is that number one, if you're bent and twisted and damaged, if you're damaged goods, you belong. You belong in this wonderful forest called humanity. You're welcome. And number two, if you really are bent and twisted, you're one of my favourite trees. The one you always like to go back to. You're gorgeous. And that idea of acceptance, that idea of they thought they need to change themselves and get better and improve, no way. They belonged, they felt at ease and at peace with themselves, that there was nothing wrong with them. When they found that out, such a peace and relief and ease. That's why they cried and laughed. So, there's powerful stories. So, if any of you are trying to improve yourself, forget it. That is based on a myth you're not good enough. You've got to improve. Come on, be better. Come on, Ajahn Brahm, tell better jokes. No way. Actually, there was a joke about I should have told it a few minutes ago, because I was telling about those birds, which there was a fellow who was interviewed in Forbes magazine because he was a self-made millionaire. And he said, well, what was your business? And he said, I got into this carrier pigeon, this homing pigeon business. I made millions on that. I said, how come? Well, how many birds did you sell? He said, I only sold one, and it kept on coming back. That's why he became a millionaire. No outlay and guaranteed return. So anyway, okay, so you can see I should be able to improve my jokes. But it's impossible. So this is beautiful, accepting yourself, being at peace with yourself. So it means you sit here, being at peace with yourself, making peace, being kind, being gentle, no craving, content. And this is not being slack. Something happens. You're sitting here, just making peace, being kind, being aware, and your lotus starts opening up. Wow, I never did anything, it just happened. Precisely. If any one of you knows the story of the Buddha, for 6 years he struggled so hard trying to get enlightened. Put really a lot of effort in, and got absolutely nowhere, and then decided to give up, let go. Make peace, be kind, be gentle. And all that stuff which he was trying to get through the hardest of effort, when he stopped, came to him. Became a Buddha. It's going a different way. Not work hard and you get somewhere. Stop. See what happens. Oh, the question, how does one practice see the 7 factors of enlightenment? Stop. 7 factors of enlightenment, what are they? It is starting off with mindfulness. Now mindfulness gets really strong mindfulness, weak mindfulness. So start with mindfulness. Dhamma Vichaya. It's not contemplating the Dhamma. This is what Dhamma Vichaya is. Okay, here we go. I'll use this one. I did this example over when I gave the presentation. I get some really interesting gigs. This particular invitation was to the 2016 World Computer Congress in Seoul. No, it wasn't Seoul, Daejeon in South Korea. I gave the keynote address. So after the president sort of introduced everybody, then I came up and they said, what the heck's the monk doing here? What does he know about computers? Not that much. But then one of the exercises I did, I lifted up a bottle of water. That's the only thing I had on my little desk. What's this? To all these IT experts, all these engineers, top of their field. What is this? And of course they didn't know what I was up to, but they played along and they said, well, it is a plastic bottle of water. Yeah, what else is it? Well, it is like cylindrical, and it's maybe about a third full of water. Yeah, what else is it? I kept asking them, it's got a white cap on it. Yeah, what else is it? I kept questioning them. Tell me more what it is. And then after a while, they stopped giving me descriptions. They run out of names. I said, now you are contemplating it. Once you've got past the descriptions and the names, which is old knowledge, old ideas. Now you're actually seeing this afresh. Seeing these things in this which you've never seen before, you've never been told. Things which are way past the old knowledge. It's called innovation. Seeing things which no one else has seen. Getting way past the names to see things afresh. They really got into that and said, wow, that's interesting, hadn't heard that before. Because that's, what monks can do. Just add something, which is, out of left field, out of the box, because, we live in a different world. So anyway, that's Dhammavicaya, contemplating something, not thinking about it, holding it there, and never allowing your learning to stand in the way of truth. Not all of what you think you should be seeing. Push all that aside, let it pass away, and then see afresh. That's what mindfulness does. What that does, that's where you get the energy from. Wow, this is interesting. And that's the third factor of the enlightenment factors. You're energized, not through force, natural energy. And then, bang. What's the next one after energy? Joy, piti. It's okay, we can stay down there. Anyway, but thank you for your kindness. But anyway, piti, the joy comes up. That's an enlightenment factor. That's what you're supposed to have. Stop trying to get rid of it because you get attached. It's supposed to have joy. Sometimes when people start having a good time, they think they're doing something wrong. Have you been taught like that when you were young? Don't have a good time. There's too many other people striving and struggling for you. You've got no right to be happy. Wipe that smile off your face now. Crazy stuff. So anyway, piti is part of the path. Happiness, joy. And from the joy, the tranquility, contentment. Don't need to move. And the next one, that tranquility and the joy really build up to samadhi. It's the sixth factor of the enlightenment factors. Stillness, real stillness, the jhanas. And then the last factor, upekkha. You're not moved by anything in the world. Immovable. People criticize you, they praise you, you get sick, whatever. Nothing moves you. 7 enlightenment factors. That's how they work. Anyway, there we go. Anyway, that's obviously a sign. I'll do that tomorrow. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. You crazy. Anyway, see, it is brainwashing. You wouldn't do that in front of another teacher. You do it in front of me. Excellent. So great. Have a nice night. See you in the morning, maybe. The future's uncertain. Pretty good.